Good evening. So as you can probably tell, the bike's in a right mess at the moment. I've just been through to my local KTM dealer to get some parts because the windscreen shaft adjuster, which is this part, I actually had a boo-boo and snapped the thread off the end. So I've had to go and get a new one. But because of the way that it's designed, and I'm not sure if you can see this, but just here, all the way around on both ends, it's got like a 0.5 mm, 1 mm lip on it, so you can't actually slide it out. So it sits in here. So you got to take all the front end off. You got to take all the side off. Take the headlight out, split it all open, and then remove this from the inside. So don't, whatever you do, over tighten these, because that's what I did and it snapped it clean off. It is only brass, it's soft metal. Now what I did in the meantime was actually drill into the end of this once I'd filed off the remainder of the thread, and I put some stainless bar in just as like a temporary measure until I'd received this. But I got over eager and stripped the whole bike down probably about 2 hours after I'd done it, and then I didn't even go out for a ride on the bike. So it's been like this now for about 5 to 6 days whilst I've waited for this part to come in from Austria, because a lot of KTM dealers don't actually stock it in the UK. But yeah, I mean, I got this from my local dealer, Triple D Motorsport in Kendal. Quality service, do whatever they can for you. Speak to them on the phone, go in and see them. Yeah, can't really ask for much better. And I know that KTM servicing or service centres sometimes get a bit of stick, but I've never had any issues. But in this video, what I'm going to do is try and go through rebuilding the bike. I know there's a couple of YouTubers out there that have taken these bikes and stripped them down, specifically taking the tank off, which involves removing all of the side fairings here. But I couldn't find anywhere for the life of me, online, on forums, on YouTube, anything which tells you how to remove the headlight, get into all of this, and then put it all back together. So yeah, bear with me, I'll do the best I can. I have got some spare bolts. This is the stack that I've removed from the whole of the bike. Don't know if you can see the ACC mount bolts on the bottom. I've put like headstock bolts left and right, seat plastic bolts, side fairings, indicator fairing right, indicator fairing left, side fairing left and right, headlight bolts, filter intakes. It's just got the lot. A lot of these are the same. I think they're all T30s, but there is quite a few once you start getting into the front of the bike which differ, and different lengths, different thread pitches. And so I think I'm going to start with putting the right hand side, as you're looking at the bike, headlight fairing back in place. And that is this bit. So in here, you got the likes of your TFT screen, your light itself, and that, which I can't remember is. So I'll move all of these out of the way, and we'll slide that in there, making sure that you don't crimp any cables or hoses. So there is actually areas of this which like slot together. it's just getting it right. But I realised that I've done something wrong, because the part that I actually removed that needed replacing, I haven't put in. So the most important bit again. And as you can see, it sits in there, up in at them little brass bushings either side. And like I said earlier, the only way to remove that is by splitting these two bits of fairing. So this is the old one. I've got this for a reference, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but if you can see that, that's the old bit that I've sort of re-threaded on. So the reason I've got this for a reference is because on this end here, it's actually got a longer stem than this one. So the shoulder for this one is here. The shoulder for this one is here. So it's probably about 15mm longer. Now this end goes on the left hand side of the bike. If you're sat on the bike, that is how it would be in front of you. It'd be on the left. So just give it a little wiggle about and it will go in there. And then you can put the plastics back together. It'll stick out the sides just like that. So the first lot of bolts that I'm going to look to put back in are going to be these ones, which I've named the headstock bolts. And those 4 bolts go into these here. So you've got 1 and then 2 down the bottom there, and the same for the opposite side, and they just bolt into this bar here. This is one of those clips I was telling you about, which sort of just keep everything in place. Same with the top up here. And then there's more down here. This is what your ACC bolts to. Part of your TFT screen, headlight bolts. Quite a lot. So again, these are T30s. I'll take the first 2 out and do the bottoms, and then I'll do the top 2. So one thing to mention is the adaptive cruise control. That actually sits on there. As you well know, it goes between the cornering lights on the headlight. And in order to get this plug to connect to it, it actually needs to run, if you can see, there's like a cutout in here, and then it goes underneath this bolt, which clamps 2 sections together, and the cable runs in this channel, this little gully here, and then it'll come out the bottom, and it'll connect into the bottom of the adaptive cruise control. So yeah, when you're putting this back together, don't forget this cable, it has to run in the channel from the back right the way through to the front. So them 4 bolts are in loose now. I won't tighten everything up yet until I'm happy that I've put everything in the correct order. Again, this one here, and another one just down there at the bottom of my finger. And then I've just done the same with this side. One there, and another one just down the bottom down here. So it should look like that. So inside here, it's probably too dark. I'll do my torch. The cable runs down and it runs in that little channel between them there, through underneath that. Yeah. Now that tape is just because it keeps wanting to separate. So to hold it in place, I've just put that there for now, because obviously there's going to be a bolt going through here, numerous ones up here, and down underneath on the bottom as well. But just to keep it all in place, I've just put that tape on there for now. So I did have some spare stuff left over, which I've figured out now where it goes. So with everything that was in the cardboard, I had 4 short shoulder T30s left, 2 long shoulder T30s, and a metal insert. Now this is to go through where your TFT screen mounts, just on here. These 2 are for the bottom of the headlight, because it's got the headlight protector over the top, and these miscellaneous ones, I'll just find places for them as I go. As I know now, one of them actually goes in the bottom at the front there, just above the ACC cable. So I'll be doing that first, and then after that I will probably remount the actual headlight before putting the ACC back in place. So as you can see, the tape's been removed. This one here is just your standard short shoulder T30, and in order to get that in, you have to be able to move this side fairing slightly, because it goes up under and in here, and you need to get a short extension in to be able to do that. So a couple of adjustments again, obviously without making sure that all of this is tight. This headlight plug does actually follow the TFT screen and the 12 volt, so it'll come up there and it'll plug into the back of the light here. Now this gap here, this area, you can see it goes right through. That's where the headlight level dial, if you want to call it that, it goes through there. So another reason for keeping this loose is that you're going to have to separate this slightly so you can feed that in, and then put the mounting bracket there ready to go in place. So I'll do that now, and then we'll see how it looks. I'll show you the mounting bolts for the bottom as well, because they come with a couple of spacers. The headlight, obviously that's where it plugs in. Just be careful that when you do remove this, this is adjustable, and you do have a screw in either side of here, so that needs to be in place. This does sit on the orientation that I've got it in at the moment, so if you were sat on the bike again, this is on the left. So I've just got the headlight balance in there at the moment. I have actually put an extra bolt in up the top, up here, just to close up that top area. Again, it's sort of finger tight. Now the headlight bolts, top 2 bolts are silver in colour, as are the bottom 2. The bottom 2 are domed with spacers. So I'll fit the top two now, then I'll show you where they actually go, then I'll go on to the bottom two. Again, it is a bit of a tight squeeze. The headlight top mount bolts are actually fitted now. So they go in there. One on that side, one on the other side. Now this bearing is going to get in your way, and you will need to move it out of the way to get a small extension in with your T30 head on it. When fitting the light, it can be a bit fiddly, so you can actually look inside here, and then just over in the corners, down here at the end of my finger, that's one mount, the other one's just back here. You can get it into place because you can see pretty easily where it's supposed to be. But we're getting there now. Top bolts in, next ones, bottom ones, and they go in here. Might as well show you now. And then if you can see where my fingers go in, there's a little silver collar there, so the washer will go in first, or the top hat as I call them, and then the domed screw straight after that. But again, make sure that this is aligned properly, because that's what they actually screw into. So I've got one in, just in there. Now a little trick maybe. It's almost in position. It's just slightly on the angle there, look. If I bring you in a bit, we're looking at, I can't do everything with one hand here, it's a nightmare. We're looking at this part up here, and you can see how it's just and so higher on this side than it is there. Now I've got one in this side. Now the little trick that I was on about is, if you put this connector together here, I've just stuck my adjustable small extension in there, and then I can adjust it ever so slightly, quarter of a turn, which allows me to get a bit more movement on the bottom mount adjuster slash bracket for the headlight. So I'll go ahead and put that second one in now. So as I mentioned before, I've got the first one in. These are your little top hats. That'll slide in first, and then once that's in, your domed screw slash bolt will go through that and hold the bottom of the headlight in place. Alright, that is a fiddly job. Try to get that all in place. You need either a helper or numerous sets of hands. So now all I've done is tighten the bottom T30 underneath the headlight for the surrounding plastics, and tighten this one at the top up here. The next job will be to tighten the headlight in place with the 4 bolts that I've just fitted, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, and then we're going to go ahead and tighten up the what I call headstock bolts, the 4 bolts that we put in first either side. So that's them tight. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the opposite side. Now what I did was I did the 2 top ones, then I did the 2 bottom ones, and I tightened them like gradually. So I got this one so it like butted up, same with that one, then the bottom one down here and the bottom on the opposite side, then went back over them again and tightened them up until they were solid. Now these 4 bolts, I haven't got the torque settings for them, as I have not got the torque settings for any of them, to be honest, because I don't know whether this was a job that was designed for KTM to do, with not finding any information about it online. But they were tight, them 4 bolts were tight. Again, it's probably just a bit of common sense really. If you've got an M4, an M5 or an M6 bolt, specifically M4 or M5, you probably don't want to go and FT it, because you've got the potential to snap it. If it's an M6 you can go a bit tighter again, if it's an M8 you can probably go a bit tighter again. Now a lot of these are M5s, I believe. The odd M6, like these headstock bolts, like I say, can go a bit tighter. And again, screws like this, they look more like plasterboard screws than anything else. They're going into plastic, so you tighten them as hard as you can possibly go, and you're probably going to thread the plastic just to smooth off the whole of the inside. Again, these are M6, these are the ones for the ACC, they can go pretty tight. The rest of it, just go as tight as you feel comfortable. They don't need horsing home. Again, it's just plastic on plastic, the majority of it. Tighten them up, take it out for a ride, tighten them back up again if any of them have become loose. Just double check it, but for the sake of it, just don't over tighten it, because you're going to put yourself into a world of pain if you're going to have to start buying new panels or even windshield adjustment shafts, because it's just an expense that you don't need to pay out. I was daft and went full whack on it and it snapped it clean off, so as I said, that was my fault, and now I've got to go through all this, putting it back together, taking it apart, blah blah blah. Step number 9 million. The 12-volt adapter is a bit of plastic, it just sits in the channels on the bike. These little channels here, and on this side, that's your plug for it, it slots in there. So the best thing to do for this, now that I've tightened everything up, is maybe undo the small Torx bit in here, which should hopefully give us that little bit of wiggle room to slide it in. So as is most of the time, wouldn't go in. I had to undo the 4 bolts that I tightened up. Next task, the ACC. So this is the shroud that goes on the front of it. You're best off removing that. It is only held on with a little couple of clips on the sides, one here and another one here, and that just gives you room to be able to slot the plug in. Now again, this is held on with 4 bolts on the underside. So under here, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Again, that's the plug for it. These are them bolts, the silver ones. So it'll sit in there, on the top, sorry, like so. Again, another fiddly job. Shouldn't be too bad once you get one in. So if you start with the front ones, because you can actually do them with your fingers, the other 2 at the back are sort of set into the bodywork. Don't think, no, I can't get my fat fingers in there. So I'm just going to take the extension off. We ratchet and do them like that. Again, I can't see where the hole is, and everything just becomes that little bit more harder to do. That's the third one. The fourth one should be easy now, he says. If we can find out where the hole is. Come on, there we go. Screw them home. Now they don't need to be tight right now if you don't want to, because they are accessible whenever. So just plug that in, make sure it clicks, and then you can go ahead and fit the shroud back over the top, which should just click into place. Just obviously be careful that you don't snap any of the tabs. Come on. There we go. I'm just deciding what to do next. I think it's time for the TFT screen to go back in place. There's the plug for it. Attachment point in there, and then it fixes on here as well, as far as I'm aware, if I can remember correctly. But let's see how I get on. That's just up here. So you can see one for the bottom, two for the top. Let's give it a go. So I fitted one in this side here. Again, short shoulder T30, just goes in here. Just finger tight for now. And then moving down here, in there goes this collar. So it will only go in, well, one of two ways, that way or that way. As you can see, that's the position in which it goes. And then all we'll do is just get the extension and push that home, and that's that in position. Then we'll come around the other side. Grab a T30 Torx bit and we'll tighten that up. That's your screen done. Again, no need to be stupidly tight. That's everything in position now. Third one goes in that little hole down there. One thing to note though, when you are putting it back in, the cable for the screen will sort of arch slightly and probably rub on the windscreen adjustment shaft, but just make sure you don't snag it, because I can't imagine that would be cheap to repair. So last but no means least, for the work on the front end anyway, before the fairings start going back on, is your windscreen brackets. Now these need to be fitted now before any of the fairing does go on, because you still need access behind these. So these both still need to be loose because you need to get into these. Now when these are fitted home fully, you're not getting a tool in there because you can barely fit a finger in there. And it is the same with this side. Another one goes in there. This needs to be loose because you need to be able to get to it. So with these, it's just a case of rebuilding them. That's a spacer which goes on the outside. This is the screw slash bolt and spacer which attaches to those 2 points I've just shown you. These are the cogs which sit on the back side of here. This one and the spring, if you sat on the bike again, go on the left hand side. Now the spring goes in to keep sort of tension on these two, and this one, sorry, which is sort of bumpy, lumpy, whatever you want to call it, castellated, that goes in there on the shaft, and you can just and so see the other end which it connects to. Now on this side you don't have that, it's just flat. So again, that goes on the left with the spring, and it just keeps that little bit of tension so that your screen doesn't wobble about so much. So I'll fit these now and then I'll show you how it's gone together. So you can see it's fitted in there. It is literally held on by maybe 1 or 2 threads, and the reason for that is so that you can pull this out to be able to get your cogs and everything in here, and then once all that's put in place you can go ahead and tighten that up down there. So I'll just show you this before I obviously put it all together. That castellated bit is slid on there. It does have cutouts, so you can only just slide it on. So like this here, see the cutouts, they match the brass bar, so you just have to sort of get it right and then it'll slide on. But anyway, the castellated piece goes in, your spring goes on, and then you can put your cog on. See how the cog slid on there? If I turn it now, it turns the brass shaft. Once that's in place, you can then put this up and guide it in. That little rubber washer with a metal insert goes in there next to the geared cog. Obviously that just allows or prevents the gearing, the cog, from sliding this way. So it's your cog, your rubber washer with your metal insert, and then your plastic washer on the outside of that, and then it's your handle, your metal washer and your nylock. And that's the same again for both sides. Another little side note to make, I'll show you. Obviously the screen's right down, you can just see the washer, it fits nicely in there. Now this side we still have a gap, so this is going to have to come undone, pulled out, dropped to the bottom and fit back onto the cog, and then tightened back up again. Otherwise you're going to have a wonky screen. So before you go ahead and put your screen on, obviously the mask needs to go on both sides and the centerpiece. But before the centerpiece can go on, the headlight protector has to go on, because there's 4 screws on the top of there which need to go in first. So I'm going to fit these, and then I'm going to fit the headlight protector, and then I'm going to fit the centerpiece. Then I might take the dogs for a walk for a little bit of a break, come back, put the screen on, and time lapse the side fairings, the tank fairings, and putting the seats back on. And then it's just a case of putting back on the bash guard which I bought, and the crash bars which are from Heed, so they do the whole side of the bike. But yeah, I'll see you again soon. I'm going to grab a brew, go for a quick wander with the dogs, and then I'll crack back on. one short shoulder T30 left. Don't know where it goes. I've had a look at the panelling on the outside. From what I can see, there's nothing empty, so it must be underneath somewhere. I've no doubt the panels will be coming off at some point again in the near future, so I'll just have a double check them, but I'll keep hold of it for now. What a nightmare of a job. Definitely don't recommend snapping off the end of that brass shaft. So if you're gonna mess with it, just be careful, because it's a big labour intensive job. And I know some people, after speaking to their KTM employees, they've said that they've had a couple of bikes in that have had the same issue, and they underestimated how long it took them to do the job from start to finish. So even they think it's pretty annoying.